like co-host. He just jumps in. Here we go.
Fair enough.
Oh man, I gotta hold on. We're live, but there's a Facebook setting thing here that I cannot figure out. What the hell is this? I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. I had to create a new. Oh no, that's fine. I gotta. Let me do this. Let me do this. That was super weird.
You left?
Yeah, I tried to. There's 2 home service happy hour groups out there because one's public and one's private.
Mm-hmm.
And the logo looks the same when I try to stream to it, so I can't really tell if it's working or not. It acts super weird. Now I think I'm going to the right spot, but I can't tell which one's which. But they both show up. I'll have to do a test run. I do need to. This probably won't make it into the podcast, but I do need to get on the Facebook app here and make myself public so that
they make the editing for, right?
But I kind of like the raw versions of stuff better. Like, I think this is fun. I think this is entertaining, and I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I don't.
A little bit. It's fun.
I have part of the reason why I don't have this thing. Part of the reason why I keep this thing free flowing is like that content is so much more fun than when you can tell there was a question and you can tell the questions were sent ahead of time and you can tell the answers were thought of ahead of time. It's like, I might as well watch a fucking political debate. This is boring out of my mind. Like, give me something entertaining and fun. So we're keeping this entertaining and fun and loose and
real.
All you people checking in, throw your questions in. We got Kaden Hoover in the house. Kaden's been a client of mine. He's a hunter too. And so whenever I have somebody that I know likes to hunt and I know how they do business stuff, I just like to BS with them. And so Kaden and I were BSing about stuff the other day. And I was like, Kaden, we should do this intentionally on a podcast. And so we are. And so I got this sweet koozie it's like a jacket, but it's a koozie. It's got these handles, but these handles are like a little soft. So I don't totally trust them. But I'll just manhandle it. Like whenever my wife, I can't even say this with like certainty of the last time that it happened. My wife is not a shopper at all, but the 2 times in our 10 plus years of marriage that we were at like a mall together, she handed me a purse. I have a purse holding strategy.
Okay.
And it goes something like, hold it like you don't know what it is. Like, you sure as hell don't hang a purse. No, you don't do that. You don't do that move. You sure as hell don't hold it. You don't hang it over your shoulder. You either grip it like it's a bar of soap or like it's a fish that you're taking the hook out of. You grip it like that with just a bare paw, or you football it. Those are the only 2 ways men are allowed to hold a purse. Right. And if you're ever like carrying it like you know what it is, it's disgraceful. And so with this, I'm holding on to this koozie, and I get that this koozie is funny and has these sleeves, but I just don't trust him. Just like I don't trust a guy carrying a purse like a purse is meant to be carried. I trust a guy that carries a purse like a football, or like he's crushing it. That's a guy that I trust, and so I'll drink to that.
It's good to know. It's good.
How did we get onto this topic? See how we do this podcast?
I don't know. Here we are, right?
Kaden Hoover, ladies and gentlemen. Kaden, thanks for jumping on. I'll say I got a couple things I want to say, and then I'm gonna have you like give a little background on yourself. It is prime time convention season. I'm headed down to PWMCA tomorrow. I'm speaking on Friday. If you don't know what that is, it's Pressure Washing Group. I'd screw up the acronym, so I'm not going to do it. We're going down to Orlando, and then I'm taking the kiddos. Like, this is the first convention I've been to where my family's coming, but they're not actually coming to the convention. I'm just like dipping out of Disney for a day to go talk, and then I got to get back over to Lightning Lane and Fast Pass, some ass and whatever else is going on. I don't know. There's so many acronyms and Genie Plus and stuff, and I got to figure all that out yet. But we're doing the Disney thing down at PWMCA. And then a month from now, and I was talking about this on my show earlier today, and I even gave away over $1,000 ticket, Kaden. Somebody let me give away something worth more than $1,000.
That's crazy.
I mean, they are crazy. I don't know what the hell's wrong with them.
They must have seen the way that you hold purses.
Yeah, that's the only. Cheers. But we got Sales Boost coming up March 20th to 23rd in Wilmington, North Carolina. And if you plan on selling stuff this year, you probably should get really good at selling stuff this year. And if you don't have that convention on your radar, you sure as hell should. There's a ton of really good speakers. There's a ton of hands-on stuff. Pat Clark jumped in earlier, who founded Sales Boost. He's going to be there doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. I'm going to be there drinking a whole bunch of shitty light beer. I'm going to do some of that on stage when I talk at y'all. So anyway, go check out Sales Boost. SalesBoostLive.com is what it is. And use promo code Dan or beer. I'm pretty sure they set up promo code beer for me. Thank God. That's way more fun than promo code Dan. But that saves you $300 on your ticket, which is like 30% on your ticket or something like that. So go check it out. The tickets are expensive. I'll say that flat out. Like, it's an expensive convention ticket because it's freaking worth it. It's still not the same. It's still like less expensive than the flight and the hotel is, because flights and hotels are crazy. The convention itself is less expensive than that, but it's expensive relative to some other conventions. And ideally, or arguably, it's that much more valuable too. So check out the Sales Boost. That's all I got off the rip. Kaden, how the hell are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I had a busy day, but it's been good.
Dude, I like busy days, except for when you have the busy day where it's like, here's all the shit I'm going to get done today. And then Crosby, who you just saw right before we went live, has hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is like blisters all over your hands, feet, and your mouth. When Regina, who was the second one that came in that you saw before we went live, she had it 4 or 5 years ago, and I got it.
Ooh.
And man, it was like, and they say the kids aren't as like susceptible or don't feel it as much, but for adults, it's really bad. And I am aligned with what they say. Whoever they is, I'm fully aligned. Like, it was miserable. Reggie, she didn't seem to be too bothered by it, but Crosby's missed 3 days of daycare in a row, which means I have gotten jack shit done. And I've had this like great intent of getting a bunch of stuff done, but now I'm just getting busier and I have less time to do it because now we got to do this damn Disney trip. So I hope your busy day was like you being busy doing shit that you were trying to work on instead of you being busy taking care of a 1.5-year-old with hand, foot, and mouth.
Well, I don't currently have kids, so most of it was stuff I was trying to get done.
That's a fucking great strategy to stay on task. Like, as I laugh, Tommy Mello like has this amazing business and does all these cool things, and I'm just like, man, like, he's not married, he doesn't have kids. Like, I'm a little jealous. I mean, don't get me wrong, my family's awesome, my wife is awesome. It's a phenomenal obligation. I wouldn't change it. Wouldn't do anything different. But there's always a little bit of part of me that's jealous when somebody doesn't have kids, because I'm just like, you are 10x more productive than I will ever be. I'm productive. I'm just productive changing diapers and like feeding all these roommates and telling them to take this out of their mouth. When we were ice fishing there, you'll love this one. We were ice fishing like 2 or 3 weekends ago, and my Crosby is like getting more. He wants to play in the minnow bucket. And then he wants to dump the minnows from the minnow bucket down the ice fishing hole. And then he wants us to catch a fish so he can hold on to that. And then he wants to hand me a minnow when I bait the hook. And so he does that. And then I handed him a different minnow that was like coming off the hook because I wanted to change it out. And then I hear my wife scream. And then I look back and that minnow is in his mouth. Just the tail sticking out. Like, he almost housed that whole thing. He's just going to bloop, just gulp it down like Homer Simpson.
I had to see what it tasted like,
I don't know if it was the taste or the feel. I think he was more going for like, what does this thing feel like?
Yeah.
And then I think he was pretty pleased. And I think he was like, and he did not want to give it up. He was just like, like his mouth shut, not just like grunting, and didn't want to spit it.
Protein, right?
Yeah. My wife wasn't having it. My wife, he wasn't freaked out. He was only freaked out when she freaked out. Like, if she wouldn't have freaked out, everything would have been fine. But she freaked out, and then he freaked out. And then I just laughed. I was laughing so freaking hard. Like, everybody else was losing their minds. I was peeing my pants laughing. It was great.
Sounds like a good time.
So anyway, you had a busy day. I digress.
Yeah.
You had a busy day and you got to be busy with stuff that you wanted to do.
For the most part. Yep.
Good. That's good.
Yes, sir. But yeah, a little bit about me. So I got into the service industry specifically through exterior cleaning at the age of 18. So
was it something you knew you wanted to do, or was it just like I just feel like I should go out and make some money? What's a way I can go do that?
I wanted to have a business. So
Okay.
it was more so that, and I did still go to college. So I started it when I started college, the exact same month. And it was more so a way to make money, but also to start a business. I didn't grow up thinking like I want to clean siding or windows.
Yeah. I've got this idea. I'm just going to make it.
Yes. But, long story short, it was just something that was a vehicle for getting into business and learning all of those things. Mm-hmm. So I was forced to, which I think it was beneficial long-term for me, to hire early because I was in college full time. So I could not physically do all of the things. So immediately had to start hiring people. Luckily, I had a decent network, where I was from. So that was how I started, along with knocking on doors and all of those fun things, and grew it for a brief minute. I did start another location, which was premature. I learned a lot from it, but
I was gonna say that's the best education you can get is biting off more than you can chew.
Yes. So that was for about a year, and it was actually pacing to do better than the original location, but came back to the original location, grew that for, I guess it would have been 3 more years, okay, and then sold it last year when I moved again. So
what let me take you back a second. What prompted you to start the second location? Was it like saw somebody else doing it and you're like, it seems like a good idea, or you just had the right guy, or you thought you had the right guy sort of thing?
So I actually did have a decent guy. Knowing what I know now, granted, at the time I was 19, about to turn 20 when I did that.
You thought you had the dude at that time.
Yeah. Well, and he was good, I will say that. But he ended up getting deployed. He was in the reserves as well.
Yep.
So the weekend thing or whatever. But got deployed, and he was kind of like the main person. Granted, I had automated a lot of stuff, obviously younger, so not that I'm like into technology big, but like I automated a lot of things so that it could be ran fairly remotely. Mm-hmm. But when he got deployed as like the main person there, stuff just kind of wasn't going like it should have. So that's not what prompted me to do it, but that's why I had to come back. But what prompted me to do it, truthfully, was that my wife was going to school in a different location, and it was a much larger metropolitan area than where I was. So I was like, I'll start another location. That's what prompted me to do it. So
did you go to that second location, or did you stay at home base?
No, I went there.
Okay. And then you just kept home base running?
Yes. But that's what I say. Like, we utilized like Jill's office, and I had like an office admin, if you will, and people like that, to where a lot of it was remote for me anyways. Mm-hmm. Obviously we had people cleaning to actually do that stuff, because you can't do
naturally.
But so I set it up.
We're gonna clean your house so good it's like we're never even there.
Yes, if you can do that, you make a lot of money.
Showed up. Yeah, that'd be good. Good take.
But that is, I had set it up to do that, and then all those things happened. I learned a lot.
Hell yeah!
Not necessarily a failure, but it was a good learning experience.
I was gonna say, what? Give me as a learning experience. What are the things where you're like, these are my words for it, so you can tweak this however you want. But what are the things where you're like, yep, that was a good idea. Nope, that was a terrible idea. And then somewhere in between where it's like, I don't regret that, but I will never do it again, sort of stuff. You got like on that spectrum. Mm-hmm. What were some lessons?
Are you talking about that specific event or overall?
just let's go multi-location. Let's go multi-location specifically. Any like do's or don'ts, or there's a good lesson to be learned, and so do it if you want to do it. But here's what I learned from it.
I think the biggest thing that I learned is having the right people, because again, I was very young and very naive. the only real job that I had prior to starting that was concrete. So like I had never been in any situation like that to even understand who would be a good fit for that.
Mhm.
So I would say the biggest lesson was probably people in general. Not saying that again the specific person we had was a bad fit, but there's definitely people that are qualified to do different things at different times.
Well, man, it's super tough too if they get deployed and
Well,
you're like, oh shoot,
yes,
like you may have been the guy, but now neither one of us has a choice. Like
yes,
you going, you got to go do your thing.
for sure, and that obviously played into it. But that was one thing, and then I personally, I mean, I think that trying to grow as fast as possible isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can definitely burn you, but at the same time, we don't know how long we have, and even if we have 80 years, it's still limited, right? So and I'm also about like achievement and or trying to do bigger things. So the faster you can do those things, the better, even if you fall on your face a couple times, because it's going to happen either way.
I think one thing I have found to tap onto that is that slowly changes as you get older too, because when you're in your low 20s, you have so much time to like learn a lesson, recover, like your runway is so long. And now I'm like pushing 40 and my risk aversion, not intentionally, but unintentionally, I find that my risk aversion is slowly creeping up. And not like there's plenty of time for me to start new stuff and do stupid things, but I'm also like maybe I don't crave the failure as much or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the right way to put it, but I dig what you're saying. I'm totally aligned, and I'm observing in myself that I don't think I'm at that same level anymore. I don't think I'm there anymore. And maybe it goes back to like when I look at somebody like Tommy Mello, and I'm just like, damn, I'm jealous. Like I'm a little jealous of that mentality and that mindset because I'm like, yeah, I got 3 kids to take care of, and we're going to Disney this week, and then we got to do this thing, and then we got that thing, and then we got kiddo sports every night, and all that stuff. It's funny how like the priorities shift a little bit.
For sure, and
not good or bad.
But that is like one thing with kids. Obviously, like once you have kids, they rely on you. So if you were to quote unquote fail and or learn, it could hurt and affect.
I mean, let's be serious. My kids rely on their mom. I'm just the dude for the fun. Like if they want to have fun, hit up dad. If they're looking to like for food or water or something useful to them, there's probably like or clean clothes. There's things that mom does that dad's not as on top of.
Fair enough.
I probably cook more in my house. It's probably 50-50. We got Ellie Mason jumping in. She says, yes, Dan. I don't remember what exactly I said when she said that, but she also said no right before it. So I'm not sure which one she likes or doesn't like. My boy Seth, I hope your nose is doing good. He said so many stupid things. Ellie said Gen X has already done enough stupid shit. We have 2 more strikes. Oh, I love it, Ellie. So Kaden, what you got into the home server space. You moved around a bunch. As you did that, like what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Obviously, you started adding on some more stuff, and I'll let you get into that.
Yeah.
But talk through like the transition into trying some new stuff.
Yeah. So I am a learner, if you will. Like I like to learn things. And one thing that I noticed in like learning about business and things like that is that there are just tons of opportunities out there. You have obviously things that have lower barriers to entry that many people get into and try, which is great for starting out and learning. And that's very similar to like exterior cleaning, for example, because you don't need much to actually get in and get started, right? But you can still learn all of those things about business. And over time, I knew that eventually I would want to go on to something else either way. But again, like I mentioned, moving again was the main reason that I ended up actually selling that company. And in doing so, I did start a Facebook group and basically started, I don't know if you'd call it consulting, but helping people and, making content, post, whatever you will, about like the pressure washing and window cleaning business, marketing, things like that. But
that group got really big really fast.
it did.
Hilariously.
Yes.
So props to that. But I think you touched a nerve, which is just like the right community of the right people. And just finding and I'll let you talk more about the community aspect of it, but like that doesn't happen by accident. And so I think you hit something there for sure.
Yeah, no, I will say it's something that, specifically to the exterior cleaning industry. There are times that a lot of the communities, if you will, online are very unhelpful, for lack of better terms.
So I was with some other business owners this weekend just talking about just full of naysayers, like full of negativity and people just trying to tell you all of their bullshit on you. It's weird.
Yes. And so that is one thing that, like, in building that, if you will, I was big on, like, people that were naysayers and or just bad for, the community overall, just kicking them out. So I think that's definitely helped because
peace them out.
Yeah, there's not a ton of like negative stuff that happens in there. But I mean, I think it's been good because I have met a lot of people. That is one thing I will say. Prior to that, I knew a lot of business owners and also large business owners. They just weren't in the service industry. So it was nice to do that and also start to meet people that, were in the same industry as me at the time. And yeah, so it's been good. And I, just try to put stuff in there from what I learned about building the company that I had and what I'm doing now around business and marketing and all of those fun things.
Yep. What was you can keep this as to your discretion.
Okay.
I'll let you decide how you want to hit this one. But what was some of the stupider shit you saw in there, and what was some of the more impressive shit you saw in there? Because there's a lot of activity going on in there. What were some of the things where like that maybe made you exit a person, or block some stuff, or have to navigate it versus some of the stuff where you're like, hey, we got somebody actually adding some real value here.
Yeah, I mean, there's the big thing with like Facebook. It's obviously a giant network, so there's spam, right? So like that's an obvious one, and that's not necessarily specific to the industry. That's just like spam happening to get in because it is private, so we, vet everyone. But sometimes people still get through. So that's a big one. But I think one of the biggest problems is someone asking a question that's potentially been asked before, and people just, for lack of better term, shitting on them for that.
Yep.
Which, yeah, obviously there is a search feature and you can take the time to scroll.
Dude, I never search. I don't throw a lot of questions out there, but I'm as bad as anybody else.
Yeah, I also don't throw a ton of questions, but at the same time, I think that part of the community aspect of something like that is coming together to help someone, no matter where they are, whether they haven't started or just starting, or someone that's, got a giant company.
That's where you do the passive aggressive. You search it for them, and then you send them the screenshot from the same page that they're already on with the answer to their question. I love that. You give them the answer, but you tell them they're a shithead at the same time. That's like the best way to handle that.
That's a little shysty, but I would still allow it,
Oh yeah. Well, I would make sure that they knew that I was being a little shysty because then it's funny.
Yeah, true.
Very true. At least you can play it up good.
Very true. But as far as like on the positive side, because there's something to be said about having that many people. Because at this point it's like over 9,000, which there's a ton of groups. But like having that many people that are all basically have a common goal, right? To a certain extent of basically growing a business, specifically in exterior cleaning, is just super beneficial because you've got people that are trying different things and doing different things all at the same time. So you can get feedback and information at a much quicker rate than trying to do all of that yourself. So, you talk about someone trying to set up like a referral campaign or a Facebook ad or stuff like that. It's nice to be able to have multiple people and multiple brains working on the same thing at once, sharing past experiences and saving each other time and being able to learn that stuff faster. And I would say that's like the most positive part, which is just kind of, no brainer about a community in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's definitely good. And there's, always you have those people that are negative, but You just try to.
You can have the negative Nancy's. You can have them. Ellie threw a thing in here. She was curious. How do you keep your company culture? And then she said, well, you're a natural sales guy, but culture. I have some very specific thoughts about culture because I've built it in like 10 cleaning companies across the country. And that was a weird challenge, like remotely trying to keep a culture. And I sucked at it, by the way. So it was like the lessons I learned from not doing a good job of it. And then I've tried to build it with remote companies. How did you do it? I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of drop whatever nuggets I got. But when you had the multiple locations, and I don't know if you see this in the things you've done and can relate to it in the newer stuff you got going on, but how do you try to keep that engagement from the people that you're working with, especially when they're in a different space, geographically, especially?
Yeah. So I'll be 100% honest. I mean, especially at that time, like it was negligible. I mean, there is a culture, if you will, but it wasn't a purposeful one.
Yeah, it happens whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
No matter what, there's a culture.
I was, again, very young and did not have any experience. And even now, I mean, I still don't have tons of experience on like there's people out there that have 30 years of experience of building culture. I do not have that, obviously. So I'm not going to say that I did it perfectly, but basically I think the biggest thing was like communication and also being very clear about what was expected of people and how that fit into the overall picture. From all sides of that, even like the remote thing to being in person, like just everyone understanding, what their role was and how they could best help the company. Because I did try to hire people that had the similar belief of like, let's grow, not like, hey, I just want a job. Now, didn't make all perfect hires, obviously. But it's one of those things where, I'm still learning that. So I don't know that I can answer it fully. I will say I currently do have like remote people hired. So going through the culture of remote stuff again. But it is, it's a learning experience always.
I think you hit the two really key things though, which is like communication and keeping it up, and then just setting the right expectations. So many things go wrong when we let people assume what the story is or what their expectation should be. It's really hard to read people's minds. I've been dating / married to the same gal for damn near 15 years, and we still don't know how to like tell what each other is thinking, right? And I can't imagine 50 years from now we're gonna have that figured out. But damn, our marriage is great when we communicate and we set proper expectations.
Yeah.
And every business thing that I've been in has been great when we communicate and we set expectations. But wherever that fails, it's like a black eye. You see it immediately where like a customer thinks this was going to be the case and you delivered this and they're pissed. And you're like, well, this is the thing I always deliver. What were you? Why would you think what you were thinking? How did you not read my mind? And that happens with employees all the time too, where it's like, I thought this was going to happen. It's like, well, I never said that. It's like, well, you didn't not say that. And so like, this is what I thought was going to happen. I have found a lot of value in being very thoughtful about my core values. And when I was back at Blue Skies, I just adopted the core values we had, and they weren't at all mine. And I like ran with them for 4 or 5 years. And then there was one time where it smacked me in the face where I like had to fire a guy, but I didn't have I knew I had to fire him, and I should have actually fired him a long time ago, but he hadn't violated any of the core values that we had.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then that was a big smack in my face. And Kedma, who runs the Conquer Group, was my coach at the time. And she was like, you need core values that can help you fire this guy. Like, you need to revise your core values because he's not meeting the values of the company. And you just got these core values. They're not your core values. And the core values of the company have to be the owner's core values, the operator's core values. If they're not, then how are they going to uphold them?
Yeah.
Right. And so I rewrote all of our core values, and I did the same now that I started Best Damn Bookkeeping. The letters are different. The acronym is different. At Blue Skies, we had the acronym PLOW. We had said we're plow horses, not show horses. We're not fancy. We're just going to work hard. And we had positive attitude, loyalty, ownership, and accountability, and we serve. Now I have best because it's best damn bookkeeping. And I have blessed, efficiency, steadfast, and trustworthy. And it all means the same shit, but it's got to be stuff that's like super core to you. I love doing an acronym because I can remember it, which I think that's valuable because you need to be able to talk to your employees about it. But one thing that I have found in like building cultures over time is that core values are super boring. They just are, like mission, vision, values. So it's just super corporate bullshit. And your employees aren't going to give a damn if you just tell them about it. And so you have to integrate it in a way that they don't realize you're telling them about it. Kind of like you need to sell to a customer a lot of times where they don't realize they're being sold, right? The worst salespeople are the ones that make it clear that they're selling you something. The best salespeople are the ones that truly can listen to you, understand what you need, and help you solve your problems. Yeah, they sold you something, but they didn't come there thinking like, I need to sell this person this. They came there thinking, I need to help solve this person's problems. Still sales is just way different perspective. And I think core values are the same thing. You can't go at it like, I'm going to shove this down my employees' throats. You got to go at it like, here's what I believe in. I'm trying to attract people that believe the same thing. And I got to make it so damn fun and engaging for them to align with this value set. And if they don't align, they got to get the fuck out of here, like fast. And like apologies for my language. Well, no apologies for my language. I always talk like that. But like if they don't align with your core values, like they got to get out. And I actually had this conversation with my buddy Ben Smith yesterday because we were talking about some employees. I think I got to fire him. And I was just like, well, what core value of yours is he violating? And if you think you got to fire him, like you're already obviously ready to fire him, but maybe your core values are wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a core value that you have because you thought it sounded good, but it's not actually the right one for why you need, like, it's your business. If you need to fire somebody, you need to fire somebody, but it's really good to have guidelines for you. The last thing I'll say, this was the thing I did at Blue Skies, and I'll for sure do it again at Best Damn Bookkeeping as we grow the business. Because I don't like just talking about them. Like I'm talking about them right now, but I'm boring myself to death. But because I don't like just talking about core values and being like, all right, team, it's our weekly meeting. And as a reminder, our core values are this. So do them or you'll get fired. I like to have awards tied to our core values. And then I like to make them goofy as hell. So at Blue Skies, like I said, we had PLOW for positive attitude, loyalty, ownership, and accountability, and we serve. And for like whoever had the best production rate for the month, they got the Plow Horse Award for plowing. And it was like a sticker that they could put on their computer because we're all remote workers, right? So it's like, how do you give them something goofy? And so they would get a goofy sticker for being the Plow Horse. We had positive attitude, and so they would get a Richard Simmons sticker, like his face. Richard Simmons. I don't know if you might be too young to even know who Richard Simmons is. He was that workout dude with the curly, short, tiny little workout dude, curly hair. Always had a headband. Always super positive, just bouncing around. Goofy dude. Always super like annoyingly positive. So that was the positive attitude award. It was like a sticker with his face on it. Loyalty was a Labrador Retriever. Ownership and accountability. God, what was that one? Forget what that one was. Huh. It's been a minute. But we had goofy stickers for each one of them. And then they would get, because it's a remote business, they would get something that was not useful at all just to be funny. Like you get the company parking spot. You get the corner office for the week. You get to work from home all week. It's like, well, no shit. So every award came with something that was meaningless, but was like a stupid ass privilege that they already had.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really fun way to integrate core values into shit we were already doing, but pat people on the back that were doing a good job and reward them because they were doing things that always aligned with our core values. So it instinctively just kept bringing up our core values. And that created a really strong culture while I was there. That was super fun to do. Everybody was digging it. We were all having a ton of fun, and it helped us grow our business a lot because when your employees are having fun, like it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, which problem do we get to solve next? And so anyway, culture-wise, I think you hit it on the head. Communication, good expectations, and then I think getting some core values that align with who the hell you are and what you really want to implement and making it fun so it doesn't feel corporate. I think that's super Super important.
For sure. No,
Good digression.
Yeah, it was.
Beauty.
Sure, that would be beneficial.
Yeah. Good question, Ellie. All right. So you got the Facebook group going. You start helping people out. I don't know why I'm holding on to this. I was painting my office. I got this little paint can opener, and I'm a fidgety dude, and it was sitting on my desk. And so now this is like the thing that's in my hands.
Yeah, gotta have.
This is just what we got going on. Which I should probably just put that down and put my beer back in my hands. So you got the Facebook group going. Are you still interactive in that? Is that still a thing that's going on?
Yes. Yep. No, still interactive. I try to, put out posts when I have something that I think will be beneficial to others from something I'm doing currently or something I remember or whatever that may be.
You can post that core values tip. Post that.
That's true.
Good core values.
And then I get a lot of DMs and stuff through Facebook, and I try to keep up with those, but sometimes that gets to be a lot. So yeah, it is still very active, but I have been very busy lately. So my interactions have probably slowed down just a hair. So
naturally, I don't know what you're talking about. You don't even have kids. You can't be that busy.
Yeah, you're right.
You're just saying that. All right, so Facebook group is going. You're helping people out. The last time I talked to you, you were working on some merchant processing stuff.
Yeah.
Take us from your Facebook group building to how you got into some merchant processing stuff, and then I'm going to nerd out on that with you for a while because I feel like there's 1,000 different things we can talk about with why merchant processing takes all my money when I want to do work for people.
Yes, there are a lot of reasons. But yeah, so I actually met somebody when I had moved to the other location, which was Denver, for anybody that cares.
The other location.
Yeah. But they were in that space, and they had actually helped me with my cleaning company transfer from using what we were using to their solution. And by doing that, we saved, it was about 1% overall of total processing fees. And so I was like, that was just one of the things. I'll get into some more things. But that was like mind blowing to me that basically all this money was going out that didn't need to be over the previous 3 years or whatever it was.
Yeah. Dude, 1% is so huge.
It is.
Like 1%. I've had quite a few businesses that we scaled to $1 million, and like that's $10,000 a year.
Yeah. And I mean, when you talk about 1% in that regard, it's literal net profit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like straight up net profit when it's 1% that you can save from something like that.
Let me drop a little math on you because as a bookkeeping nerd, I do this all the time, which is when you can, it's not sexy to save money. Like it's just not. Growing revenue is a lot sexier. But in general, our businesses, like when our home service businesses are running good, they make about 10 to 20%. That's assuming we have a team and we're scaling the thing. If it's you and you're not renting a space and you don't have an admin person and all the overhead, it looks different, but most of it's still just your paycheck. It's not really profit. As you scale the business and you're doing hundreds of thousands to $1 million plus, what is sexy is growing the revenue. But usually you as you grow, you kind of flatline between this like 10 to 15, maybe a little over 15 if you're really doing well. Yeah. But the faster you grow, the lower that number is. So let's just say on average as a bookkeeper, I would say the average net profit margin that I see is about 10%.
Yeah.
And largely that's like mature businesses are closer to 15 to 20. Businesses that are growing consecutively are a little bit lower because they're dumping more into equipment and marketing and stuff like that. But let's just say 10% for ease sake. If you go save 1%, let's say you're doing $1 million. Mm-hmm. If you go save $10,000 of that, you save 1% on your merchant processing fees. That's $10,000. If your net margin is 10%, that's the same as you just went and sold 100,000 more dollars of sales. Like it's crazy. To make that relevant to people with smaller businesses, let's say you're doing 400,000 a year and you save that 1%. And so you save $4,000 in merchant processing fees. That's the same as a $40,000 sale. a $40,000, let's say, big ass commercial job, and we'd be ecstatic about that, right? But saving 1% doesn't sound like a huge deal. But when you save money, it's like 10x. You have to go sell 10x that to make the same amount of money. When you save money, it just like you said, it goes right to the bottom line. It doesn't get run through the cheese grater of your P&L. It just all goes to the bottom line. You can't scale a business by saving money, but you sure as hell can get a lot richer, a lot faster by saving on expenses versus growing revenue. Obviously, the revenue's got to come too at some point. But anyway, I always find that astounding as to how much money you can put back in your pocket if you're frugal.
Yes, and I will throw a caveat out. So the average is like 20 to 30% in savings. We just specifically were 1%, and that's 20 to 30% of normal processing too. Yes, so
but I mean,
overall, but
a normal fee is 3%. So if you can get that down to 2 and a little more, that's 1%.
Yeah, this is true. I just want to throw that caveat.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad you clarified that. Seth has a few things coming in here that I think we're going to get to. It, Seth, hang on for a second. I don't think we're quite ready to hit this yet, but he wanted to know about charging clients for credit card processing, eating it, building it in, all that stuff. Said he did 15K 1 year. I think he aid 15K, but I think that's supposed to be did. And I'm guessing that's how much he paid in merchant fees. He said he charged 3% last year, so made an additional 0.03, which might not have been legal. He said he ate. 8 was what he was going for. He must be on his phone, and it corrected. So he ate 15K 1 year. Yeah, it is tricky. So Kaden, talk to us a little bit. I want to get into like how the system works, and then I want to debate a little bit, and audience, I want you guys to share what you guys got going on with passing it through, adding it in, breaking it out. How do you show it? Do you just build it into the price? Do you just eat it? What do you do with it? ACH. Do you save some money that way? There's so many different ways to go with it. But Kaden, give us a little like crash course in just how merchant processing works. Like what I know. I do a job for somebody. They want to pay with a credit card. Credit card gets punched in or swiped or whatever the hell. And then I get some money later and it's less than what I charged them.
Yes.
What happened? What happened in between there?
A lot. But basically I'll start by like defining who is in the space. So you have the super large like card networks. So the Visa, the MasterCard, Discover, people like that. And then below that, you have basically the issuing banks. And those are going to be the people that actually issue these different types of cards.
Chase, U.S. Bank, Bank of America, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, all the way down to like your local bank that gives you a debit card or credit card, right? And then past that, you have the actual processors, which this is like my role in this sphere. And then you have merchants or the businesses and then consumers. So what happens is that the large card networks, basically, when a consumer goes to pay, the transaction is sent to the issuing bank to ensure that the funds are there or not. And then it's either approved or declined. And then the money is moved through that system and then sent back to the merchant themselves. So the actual processor and or me is really more so facilitating the actual moving of the funds. Now, it's not
so like does Visa ever, the Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex, do they ever like touch the money, or are they just a brand and the banks are really the ones moving the money?
So they get
is money even moving? I don't even know.
Yes. So the card networks like that, they get paid fees, but the money is moved through like the banks.
Gotcha. That's what I was thinking, but I was like, the more I think, I feel like it's an Inception thing. Like the more I think about it, the more confusing it gets.
Yeah. And there's like a ton of different fees. And a lot of them are super tiny, right? Like 0.01%. But, overall, when you add up all those fees, it can add up a lot. But that is a very basic overview of what the sphere looks like, right? So when someone actually pays, that transaction gets authorized, and then the money goes from their account to the other business bank basically, and then distribute it back through to the merchant. It's kind of confusing, yes. And it's hard to explain without a graph. Graphs make it a lot easier.
Why?
But
What do the banks like serve a purpose? Like I know I get the Chase Visa card or the U.S. Bank this or the Bank of America this. I'm curious. There's the card networks, right? There's the Visa, the MasterCards, the Discovers, whatever. And so does there need this is a weird question, but like, does there need to be a bank in between? Does the bank have to be in between to actually like move the funds, or could the merchant move the funds between banks without a bank having to like have their name on the card?
Merchant is technically the business, right? I will just clarify that.
Gotcha.
In the vocabulary of all of this, the merchant is actually the business that's getting paid by their customer. So the funds are actually held in the banks, right? So like that customer's money is in a bank. And obviously you talk about like credit cards, stuff like that. Like it's still technically a bank, right? So that money is there, which is why they have a piece of it. But also on the merchant side, the business side, the actual merchant account, which is another piece of this, is typically set up with a bank, a large bank.
And when you said merchant, I was thinking authorized.net, Stripe, the process. I'm going to say processor. That's processor. Did I say that right?
Yeah, processors, payment gateways, things like that. They're basically facilitating the actual transaction. Because
we're between like let's just go Visa, Bank of America, and then merchant and business. Where does that processor fit in between? Are they after the bank? Are they between the Visa and the bank? Where do they
all.
They're everywhere. They're behind the scenes doing the whole shit.
Yeah. So if you get big enough, the actual money, the processor isn't always there. Because if you're doing billions of dollars or hundreds of millions, you could be linked up directly with like a bank, right? Okay. But those banks are moving billions, tens of billions, trillions. They're not going to go to a business that's doing $10 million.
They're going to be like, hey, Dan, this sweet bookkeeping business you got, let us handle your $10,000 this month.
Correct. Okay. Correct. So it's kind of a middleman role, if you will, but that is something that we're a little different with, and I'll get into that now, if that's okay.
This is the perfect time.
Okay. Because like with Stripe, you brought them up. So Stripe, what they actually do, they're considered an aggregator. And what that means is that they
aggregate a lot of money and take it from people.
I'll get into that too. They actually will have a merchant account that has 10, hundreds, maybe a few thousand businesses all pooling money into one merchant account. So you hear all of these stories about Stripe holding people's money, shutting down their accounts, all of these things. And it's because to prevent fraud and money laundering and things like that, they have to have super stringent rules around what is allowed and what gets flagged as far as transactions and transaction sizes and things like that, because they don't have a legit finger on the pulse of that specific business always, because that business, their funds are being put into a pool of, 100 other businesses. And they take from that pool and distribute it out. Right. So with Stripe, you do not have a owned merchant account, meaning that, again, you're with all these other businesses. So that's why you run into those issues. On top of that, on the fee side, and this is something that goes back to like with the, the card networks and the banks, different cards have different actual fees for the transaction. So there are, I don't remember the exact numbers, between 400 and 500 different types of cards. Everything from like debit cards to like consumer credit cards to corporate cards to like the, cash back credit cards, right?
Yep.
And that, 1% cash back comes from somewhere, right? And part of that is
somebody's paying for that. I got 1.5 right now. So somebody's paying me 1.5 while I pay somebody else 3.
Yes. So that is actually like built into the cost of a transaction that happens with that card.
I mean, it's got to be.
And
we're out there. We're just paying them extra fees for them to move money between us so that we can say we got reward points.
correct. And well, I guess it's their business strategy, right?
Yeah. Dangle a little bit of a carrot and then take some celery and some ranch with it. I don't know. I was just at B-Dubs recently, so that was the best I could come up with.
It works.
Yeah.
But with a lot of the large processors, so I'm basically going into like potential issues with utilizing them. So the first one is obviously the fact that you're pooled with other businesses, which can lead to account shutdowns, them holding your money. I've seen up to 6 figures of money being held from people. So I
had 6 figures of money coming in, I'd need it. I'd imagine I did something where I'd need that money.
For sure. So yeah, it can definitely be detrimental. But with these, large processors and a lot of CRMs and things like that, they'll charge a fixed rate, right? So I was just telling you how these different cards actually have different fees for each card. So like a debit card could be as low as like 0.5% for actually the hard cost of that transaction between the banks and the card networks, like 0.5%. But with someone like Stripe or like Square, you're paying as a business, or if you're passing that fee through, 2.9 to 3.5% for that transaction. So they're making the spread between 0.5% to whatever that is. And obviously they have that set to where basically those highest cards are going to be covered, but everything below that, anytime a customer's paying with a debit card and things like that, they're just making all that extra money. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they like to add in extra fees. Long story short, part of what we do is interchange plus pricing. So we basically
hold on.
Yes.
What the fuck is interchange?
So the interchange fee, that's the card fees, what I was talking about. So like that debit card being like 0.5%, it's called interchange fees. It can be called cost plus pricing.
It's like when I was studying the nerdy finance stuff back in the day, they would always say like LIBOR plus this, which is the London Interbank exchange rate, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
It's just some nerdy ass acronym for here's the baseline price.
They like to use a lot of big words in the financial realm.
They sound like accountants, assholes.
Yes, for sure. But what we do, again, is cost plus pricing or interchange plus pricing, meaning that we are basically taking 0.5% to do all of the processing, provide the support, and all of those things on whatever the actual hard cost of the card is. So, example being that 0.5% debit card, the actual fee for that, if someone is one of our clients, is 1%, not 2.9, 3.5, or whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, these large processors, I don't know if you personally have ever dealt with a chargeback, but what they will do, which is, I don't understand how it's legal, but it is, I guess. If you have a transaction that comes through that is, $1,000 and you pay the 3% or whatever that is. Can't do the math right now. What is that? $30?
Yeah.
Yeah. So say you pay $30.
You can do the math right now.
Okay. I questioned it. Yeah. So you pay that $30, right? But if that is refunded or like a chargeback, the large processors will actually charge you another 3% to process that.
Process the chargeback.
6% on money that you don't get to touch.
You never got it.
Yes. And again, I don't know how that's legal, but they get away with it somehow. We do not do that. So we only make the money if you make the money. So like with chargebacks and refunds and stuff like that, that fee is not taken out of the money that's not there, right?
Gotcha.
On the point of chargebacks, which I know I'm jumping all over, so I apologize. So please ask questions.
I mean, I feel like that's perfect for merchant processing in general because the whole thing just seems like jumping all over. I think it's just what it is. I don't know that there's another way to talk about it.
This is true. But with chargebacks, so like Stripe, again, I talk about them just because they're a super well-known, option, I guess, if you will. Most of the time they just immediately side with the customer, right? So if a customer, decides to do a chargeback, Stripe just sides with the customer.
They do every time. It's so frustrating. And anytime that I've had a customer charge me back, they don't give me the time of day. I'm like, no, like this was a legit charge. And they're like, nope, sorry, bro.
Yep, they always do that. And again, part of that is just because of the way that they're set up. So you have your own merchant account that we also do underwriting on, and I'll touch on that in a second. But basically, we would actually fight for you in that chargeback if it's justified. And we have real people like myself and the other people on the team to actually help you and support you for any of those things. So, with payment processing and moving money and all of those things, stuff happens, right? But with Stripe and the large payment processors, to your point, a lot of times they won't give you the time of day or make you
like a big insurance company where they're just like, yeah, it's just cheaper for us just to not fight it and eat it. And you're going to eat it because we decided we're going to eat it.
Yes.
So your rates are going up.
Yeah, exactly. So that was all over the place, but there's something to be said for like a Stripe. I will throw that out there because when you are first starting, they integrate with a lot of things, and to get set up, you put in some basic information, and next thing you know, you can process money. Mm-hmm. However, specifically, like I'll give an example of like in the home service industry. Say someone does start a pressure washing company, and you set up with Stripe, and you're running, call it $500 to $1,000 transactions for a year. You're growing, getting bigger, all of those things. Well, next thing you know, you start getting calls for commercial work, and you start landing 10,000, 20,000, 50,000.
Yeah, I don't want those people charging credit cards.
Well, if they were to opt to do that, and you had all the string of transactions that were all, $500 to $1,000, and they have a corporate card that they're like, hey, we're going to use this to pay this off. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, Stripe sees a giant transaction in your account, and they're like, whoa, red flag. This is different than everything else. Mm-hmm. So they're now holding your funds that you just completed the work on of however large the job was. And the way that you get in contact with them, most of the time is email. And email is not the fastest form of communication.
It's probably first a chat bot that
true.
Yeah.
But typically with their support, you do communicate through email. Eventually they will get on the phone with people, but most of it's done through email. So as a, home service business specifically, we talked about that, where it's that 10 to 20% profit. So the rest of that is expenses, right? The labor, all the overhead, all of that stuff. And you don't even get to see that money yet because they're holding it because it was a flagged transaction.
So you just spent $8,000 to get this $10,000, but you don't have the $10,000. So you're just sitting there out $8,000 until that $10,000 shows up.
Yes. Cash flow problems. For sure.
Yeah. Dude, is it now? I mean, like, part of it is anything over like $1,000. I don't really like taking a credit card. I'm like, give me a check.
Yeah.
Or there's ways to like direct transfer ACH. I've seen stuff like that happen. So what are the alternatives when like for anything under $1,000? I'm just like, whatever the $10 or $20 that it's going to be. I don't want to run to the bank. Just swipe that card. But once it starts getting over like $30, I'm like, hey, I'll run to the bank.
Yeah.
I'll run to the bank versus paying $30. What are the best alternatives? And I want to get back to the merchant processing too, but what are the best alternatives when you get bigger dollar jobs like that to efficiently get your money?
Yeah. I mean, one of the best is going to be ACH. My dad works at a large construction company, and they do their projects.
ACH like crazy.
That's all they do is ACH. So like that's the lowest cost and fastest way to do it when you get into larger things. Now, typically speaking, there is still a fee. So that's where, like with us, we are payment solutions, right? So we can do all of that, the ACH, the checks, like all of that stuff, along with software solutions for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So basically, the way that we go about it is that we actually sit down with people and like we're talking right now, and go through how they currently accept payment, what that process looks like, and then get their merchant statements, look at all of that stuff. Because what you'll find is that for like a check or something, or like an ACH payment, typically those can be like I say typically, it depends on the processor. it could be like a fixed fee, right? So that fixed fee could be way higher than it needs to be because the actual cost of doing those things is typically small.
Yep.
So again, that is why we go through the underwriting process, which I said I would touch on that. So I'll do that really quick. We actually sit down with you. This is before underwriting, go through your business. And, some of the people that I work with like to say like cash flow consultants, basically.
Yeah.
Meaning that we are actually sitting down and seeing how cash is flowing in and out of your business and seeing if there's any way that we can improve that, both from like potentially, upgrading software and or hardware, or saving money. And another big one that I forgot to touch on because we've jumped all over the place is because I said cash flow. That's why my mind went here, is actually when the funds hit your account. So that's another thing that we look at when we're comparing, other processors to what we do. Depending on the processor, typically it's 1 to like 7 business days for the money to actually hit your account.
Yep.
Even though all of that stuff that we talked about in the beginning, how all the transaction is happening is done via the interwebs, right? So
it's pretty damn quick.
So that's another thing.
I feel like most is a day. Most of the time it hits your bank account the next day or maybe 2 days later. Is it just a verification phase? Is it a invested overnight at a money market interest rate and make some ching chang for a minute? Like, what's the reason for the hold?
So I know with like the different larger processors, specifically speaking, I think, and I'm not 100% sure on why they necessarily do this. I just know that they do. But basically, I think it's in part to do with the fact that that money is pooled together. And in doing that, they have to have certain reserves.
Gotcha.
In that pool.
They're holding the cash to be able to serve.
Yes. So I think that is part of why that delay happens with a lot of those large processors. And with us, I believe it's around 70% of banks is same day, and the other 30% is next day. And that's even on I believe Saturdays and most like bank holidays, because some processors will skip those. We still do that. So that's another piece of like that cash flow consulting part, because especially in like a home service business, if you're trying to grow it, you're reinvesting a lot. Cash flow is a big problem.
Oh man, and like so much of our money is tied up in wages, and so many of us pay weekly. It's like we can't wait for this job to pay forever.
Yeah,
we've spent the money, we got to do the work, and we pay employees really quick, and that's our biggest expense. It's not like we're tying up money, and like you get into cash flow issues with inventory and stuff like this, but it's like the minute we do a job, 60% of our money's gone.
Yeah,
between admin and cost of goods sold. The other 20% or 30% in overhead trickles out by the end of the month, but about 60% of our money's gone the minute we do a job. So it's like you got to get that money fast.
For sure. Yeah, and to your point earlier about asking about, the other ways like ACH and things like that, getting a check is great, right? But that can delay the time. And it's also, to a certain extent, an inconvenience on your customer to have to write you a check and potentially mail it or hand it to you, however that process works.
Yeah.
And you also having to, deposit that money somehow. And that's where, again, when we talk about cash flow, like there are businesses that still only accept cash and check, right? And in doing that, the actual cash flow, especially if they have money, like a bank account that the money is moving out of, that inhibits the actual cash flow of that business, or delays it, I should say, to where, they could run into cash flow issues. And again, these are all things, because when you look at, and I would highly advise anyone that's watching to actually download and look at your merchant statements. So whoever's actually processing your payments, they should have somewhere where you can actually get what are called merchant statements and go and look through it, because it really tells a story of, one, how money moves in and out of your business. Well, more so but moves in your business. And
also, moves out when they take their fees out, though.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, because there are processors that will, say, hey, we offer 2.5% fixed cost, right? Which is less than like Stripe, right? But what'll happen is there will be random fees. And I wrote some down that I recently heard that were hilarious. Non-qualified surcharge.
Ooh, not the non-qualified surcharge.
There was a business that the merchant statement, and this was not a home service business because technically we can do this for other businesses too. But there was a business that 90% of the transactions on their merchant statement were non-qualified surcharge, and it was 1% extra.
How do you get qualified? I'd want to be qualified.
I don't know, but that's what I say. Like that, they'll just sneak in, and granted, like it's 1%. So in a couple month period, you may not really notice it, but over time, that's something that you would probably
that's back to that 10 grand a year.
Yeah, and I mean, and how likely, if I told you, Dan, like, hey, I'll process your money, it's going to be 2.5%. How likely are you to actually take the fees that are coming out and do the math to figure out what the actual percent?
Was it really 2.5? Well, me, I'm probably pretty likely. Most people probably not as likely.
Wrong person to ask, but yes. So like just random fees that they'll add in, and like batch fees where they especially this is more so in like higher transaction businesses. Over the course of a day, they'll do a batch fee for that whole day. That's just an extra fee that you're already paying fees on. And then they've got like retrieval fees, and this goes into like chargebacks and things like that. But a lot of those fees, some of them may have like an actual hard cost, but the processors and those people can actually set what the merchant is actually charged, right? So you could be, paying 2.5%, but on the back end, you're paying an extra 1.5% for all of this random stuff that they set up. Granted, some of it may have some hard costs, but doesn't mean that it's
charging over
5% extra.
Skip, my guy Skip here dropped a note, and he said non-qualified is usually your special program cards like rewards cards.
Yes,
which would explain why 90+% of them were special, whatever, were non-qualified, because that's the 99% of all credit cards out there are offering crazy ass rewards.
Yes.
So the 2.5 was all a gimmick to begin with.
It's how I get people to sign up. So yeah, it's those, and it goes again back to those different card types and things like that, and what the bank is saying, is this or that. So yeah. What else?
I should have been writing all this shit down, is what I'm thinking.
I know. We jumped around a lot, so my train of thought is not solid.
Well, that's just, if your train of thought's not good, that's because I'm a shitty host. Give me a little bit about what you're into and how you can help folks out. How do you guys, you mentioned that you do like a consultation at the beginning, like a cash consultation. How does, if somebody's thinking about getting some merchant processing, or if they have merchant processing and they're like, damn, I'm spending a lot of money on it, how the hell do they get a hold of you, and what does that process look like?
Yeah. So we have a landing page that's serviceindustrypayments.com.
I'm going to type that in here, and Jai can put her in notes.
All right, perfect. And basically with that, you can learn more about it, but from there is a short thing where you can actually fill out a little bit of information about your business and upload your merchant statements. From there, we would actually set up a call and get on a meeting to actually look through everything and do, again, what I called the cash flow consulting side of things, see how that money is actually, going through your business, how you're currently accepting payments, how that's being processed, all of those things. From there, we actually do an analysis to show the difference between what you're currently doing to what it would look like if we were to switch, if you were to switch. Sorry. And from that point, it's the underwriting process. And that typically takes about a day. It depends on the risk of the business, if you will, because the underwriting, a lot of this is little side tangent here. The underwriting is because they are trying to prevent fraud and money laundering, because if that stuff is happening, these banks, the large banks, are actually losing that money, right? So the underwriting is in part with those banks for you to actually have an owned merchant account. And that's where that underwriting process comes into play, but typically takes about a day. And then from there, it's just a matter of integration into whatever your current system is, or potentially updating how you do that. So on that point, another thing that I like about what we do is it's very customizable. So if you're currently, accepting payments a certain way and you like it that way and you don't want to change it, most of the time, like high 90% of the time, we can just integrate with what you're currently doing. There are some specific cases where we can't do that, but most of the time we can customize it to exactly how you want it to be done in your business, because we don't want to come in and change how you're running your business unless there's like a huge, place where we can either improve cash flow and or save money, obviously. But also, again, software, we've got multiple actual like invoicing type softwares and things like that can be used if you don't currently have one, and also point of sale stuff if you don't have that, and all sorts of things. And to that point, I will throw out one caveat. So I mentioned how Stripe and large payment processors like that are great for newer businesses. So to have your own merchant account, it costs a lot of money. It's $20 to $30 a month. Being sarcastic there. So with our
I was like, shit, I can afford that. I got that.
With our fees, you start to save money for sure, paying that monthly merchant account fee, and with our fee structure at about $50,000 a year in processing. So if you're doing below that, you're going to be better served going with like a Stripe or something like that.
Just get the big thing going.
But past that point is when you can really start to see those savings. So I did want to throw that caveat out there, because I have talked to some people that are newer, and you would be paying more. Now, granted, if you're on pace to do 100,000, it might make sense for now to go ahead and set that up. But if you're part-time and consistently doing, 30,000 a year or 50,000 a year, it might not make sense. So I did want to throw that caveat out there.
What, I don't think I talked to you about this, so I want to hit this question, but I don't know where you're going to go with it.
Okay.
The authorized.nets of the world, these like they integrate really well, but we hit on it before, and I don't totally understand it. But there's the processing part, and then there's the gateway part, and there's the part that interjects with your CRM. So whether you're on Service Monster or Customer Factor or House Call Pro or Service Autopilot or you name it, and you're in that system and clicking that button, is what you guys are doing. Does that work with the authorized.nets of the world? Like, is it competing with them? Can you use them? Is it still the same gateway? Can you run it through a CRM? I think there's a question somewhere in there. Can you figure out what my question is and answer it for me?
I got you. So
I just said a lot of words, and I'm hoping you can piece it together and say, Dan, your question is this, and here's the answer.
Your question is that. I'll tell you that. So
I don't know that. Was there a question there? I don't even know if I asked a question. I don't know.
I don't.
Maybe.
But
you can make it up. You answer. You can be a politician now. You can make up whatever question and answer it.
I don't know if I want to be a politician, but I'll do what you said.
Well, now's your chance to try it.
True. So like authorized.net, NMI, things like that, those gateways. So those are tools that we also use to actually help facilitate the actual transactions, right? Because again, we're a sort of middleman in the sphere. And so like, for example, with authorized.net, they're great for integrating with a lot of software. So like with my cleaning company, we used a CRM, and we were able to actually integrate authorized.net directly into our CRM, and we still sent invoices directly through our CRM and received, like, it didn't change anything about what we did. The only thing it changed was that we got paid faster and we paid less, and we didn't really run the risk of having, not being able to dispute chargebacks and or getting our money held.
So the gateway, the authorized.net tool, the gateway is really the thing that like integrates with the CRM that the business owner probably sees. You're another step behind that, doing the thing that makes the transaction actually go.
Yes, and the business owner may not see that. It really depends on how involved they are, because that's something where after the underwriting process and basically get approved for a merchant account, the integration piece that I was talking about, that's where we're actually setting up things like those payment gateways and all of the back end stuff to actually start taking over the processing of the payments.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answered your statement. I won't call it a question, but
my rambling smattering of words all mashed together. I did eat shepherd's pie for dinner, so maybe that's an end result of eating shepherd's pie, which is just a bunch of shit thrown together with some mashed potatoes.
It is. That's true.
Maybe my question was reflective of that. But that was what I wanted to know is like when you use a CRM, you want to be able to charge through it. You don't have to have like to go into another portal to charge credit cards. So it's so efficient to do it right inside of whatever your CRM is. And authorized.net is the one we've always used in multiple CRMs, so I'm just familiar with it. And I was like, that goes back to what we talked about earlier, which was there's so many moving pieces and little like nuggets or silos of merchant processing that I was like, how does this all fit together?
And to that point, that's how a lot of those extra fees and or higher fees get snuck in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because there are a lot of moving parts, which to a certain extent, I mean, those moving parts are there whether you like it or not. So figuring out the best way to go about that is just really what you can do. But to your point, because you mentioned the CRM thing, we'll throw this caveat out there because it is specific to home services. Service Titan is one that they will not let anyone outside of themselves integrate with. So if you are using Service Titan, unless you want to not, invoice through their platform, that is something where like they don't let outside people integrate. And
I'm stuck with the same thing on the bookkeeping side. And it was a decision I made when I first started out because I was like, well, this will be easy. I'll probably switch CRMs at some point in time, but I use HoneyBook, which is great. It's efficient. It's not the end all be all of all CRMs for administrative companies, but I got to invoice through their system.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm paying an extra %. I'm for sure.
Yeah. And there are a few like that, but there's also a lot of CRMs and big ones too that we can hook onto. So I did just want to throw that out there because I mentioned earlier, it's like high 90% of the time. That's those.
So I have a ton of bookkeeping clients that use Jobber, and a ton of them integrate with Stripe naturally. And I think I see them taking out Stripe loans through Jobber, and it's like a Jobber loan. So like Jobber and Stripe are pretty tight. But does Jobber allow other platforms to integrate too?
Yeah, they do. They allow authorized.net. But Jobber, I think they technically have Jobber payments. So it is done through Stripe, but it's like them doing it.
Yeah.
And, sometimes those bigger CRMs, and this goes back to like how fast you get your money, they'll charge you a little bit extra to get like an instant payout or your money faster.
Dude. I see that all the time, and I'm just like, man, if that day's float is worth like the interest rate of getting your money faster by a day, if I calculate the annual interest rate of how much they charge for you to do that, like you would slam your head into a wall. I see it like so many of those loans. It's like, oh, they're only taking 20%. Yeah, but they're taking it in a month. It's like you just paid 200% interest on your money.
Adds up.
It's nuts. Anyway, I talk about that with my bookkeeping clients often because they're like, oh, I can get this much money. And I'm like, yeah, but it costs you this much. And they're like, yeah, but it's only that much. And I'm like, yeah, but that interest rate is more than your rate of return on your business. Like if all you did was you did that and you reinvested in your business, you're going to go out of business. So why do you think it's a good idea now?
This is true. It's funny.
That's
why you're important, Dan.
I just want to be important, man. So serviceindustrypayments.com. What are you seeing in the industry right now? Is it more people switching to try to do ACH stuff? Is it more? And I want to get into this debate, and this is what we're going to end on here, Kaden. It's the grand finale. Should we be doing ACH stuff? Should we be passing through our merchant fees to our clients and building that in? Should we just price it high enough that we can do whatever and we don't care either way? What are you seeing the trends to be?
So definitely, and this I think is just an overall like technology induced trend is just ease of use. So with that in mind, I think that it will just further move to whatever is easiest, mainly for the consumer, but also for the business. So obviously, it's very easy to insert a credit card into a machine, right? Like with a point of sale system. Now,
I don't even insert it anymore. I've gotten pretty good at tapping it. Just lately. I was a late tapper, not an early tapper, but I'm a late adopter. I just started tapping recently.
Yeah, but see, ease of use, and that's what I say. I think it will just continue to move towards that. Obviously, from the business standpoint, the ACH stuff is going to save you money, obviously. So if you can do that, great. But I think, again, that goes into the size of the project a lot of times. A few $100s, credit card, debit card, probably just going to be
money tomorrow. Like I see ACH seems to take like about a week to get your money is what I see. Is that normal?
It depends. And this is, again, it goes into who's on the back end of all those things, but it can vary just like with the credit card stuff. And that is not necessarily, that variance isn't necessarily with us always, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily controlling that variance, if that makes sense. But to the pass through of the fees, I would say that to avoid the, hey, why do I have to pay this from your customers, to just build it into your price, especially if you have been processing payments for a minute, whether it is with someone already or you were to switch with us, you're going to get an idea of approximately what you're paying overall, right? Because even with us, it is variable because it's interchange plus pricing. So it's going to vary based on the card, but overall, it's going to average out, right? Yep. And that's where, if you know what that is, I think that it's much easier to just add that onto your price because you already know what it is, to where that's not even a question from the customer. Yep. And it's just there. Now, that's what I would say.
I get the idea of passing it along because it's a death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing, and the money adds up. But it's one of those things where it's we only notice it because we isolate it. And if you build it in and then you pay it, but your margin structure is still the same. And if you're on the exterior side, you're generally shooting for 40 to 45% cost of goods sold. Mm-hmm. And so if it's built in, you can still hit that. If you're interior cleaning, you're probably 60% ish cost of goods sold, depending on your business model. But it's such a the percentages get a little goofy when it's not there and when it's carved out or netted out or whatever the case is. And I just always go back to this, for sure you can charge it through. And I think customers now are in tune with the fact that it is a pass-through cost, right? And that they've seen it enough now that you're not going to alienate your clients. I don't think you're going to lose a shitload of clients if they see it getting passed through to them. And I don't think they're going to really change their behavior that much. They're just going to accept it, right? I actually see it a lot on not-for-profits. If you try to donate money, I get why they would charge it through because it's a donation, right? And so you're opting to pay a donation with a credit card, and then they're like, hey, but it's a donation and you're trying to donate $200, so blah, blah, blah. I totally get why they would disclose it and break it out and give you the option to cover it. They don't charge it on you. They give you the option to cover it. You can do that with your clients. What I find is you're tripping over pennies, you're tripping over dollars to capture pennies. You're way better off going and saving that 1% by just finding a different processor. You're way better off scrutinizing your marketing spend to go find something that gets you a better ROI. You're way better off getting better at recruiting because your business is totally based on your employees. And if you don't have good employees, you ain't got shit. You're way better off figuring out how to grow your business profitably than trying to save that little bit of money, build it into the price, is my perspective, and eliminate variables. I don't care what your political beliefs are, but I thought this was a thing that struck me, which is when Obama was president, he basically had an outfit. Now he had a whole bunch of that same outfit, but and Zuckerberg was the same way. And I don't care what you think about him, but he had one thing figured out, which is eliminate decisions that you have to make, eliminate processes, do things so that there isn't a process, because, and this really speaks to me because I fucking hate managing systems and processes. I don't want more of them. I want none of them. And so if you can eliminate variables and not have to even think about it, life gets a lot easier. And then you can think about stuff that actually matters instead of thinking about like, oh, did this person pay with a credit card or a debit card or a check? Like, just take it off the table. Make it so there's not a process. Just build it in your price so it's in there, and it assumes the worst case scenario that they pay with an Amex, because that's usually the most expensive. Charge enough for that. Then everybody's paying for that, whether they paid for that or not. Yeah, it's not going to be broken out, but your margin structure will still support it. And instead of you tripping over these dollars to try to save some pennies, you can go get the dollars. You don't have to trip over them anymore. That's my 2 cents. I found this with golf. I don't know. You golf at all? You golfer at all?
I have. I have a membership to a golf course, but I've been like twice in the last 24 months.
Yeah, I'm about on your speed. I grew up golfing a shitload. And if you watch pro golfers, they generally have a pretty similar swing, but there's some odd balls out there that have a weird ass swing. I'm not talking like Charles Barkley odd balls because he's not good at golf, but like Jim Furyk had a weird ass swing. There's plenty of other dudes that have had weird ass swings over the years. But there's only one thing that really matters, which is like, what's the club's head speed and the angle when it hits the damn ball? And there's a billion different ways that club can get to that ball. And you can sit and scrutinize and worry about all these little minute things, but just do one of the ways that works for you and make sure that when that club comes through that ball, it's moving fast as fuck and it's straight. and you'll probably do pretty good. And so I was watching, my brother-in-law was trying to like learn how to play golf. And he's 6'4", and he ran college track, played basketball in high school. He can dunk. Like, dude's a damn athlete. And his father-in-law is giving him all these tips and this, and you got to hold your hands like this, and you got to do this. And I was just like, Tony, you're an athlete, dude. You need to just swing a damn club at a ball and hit the damn thing. Like, quit making it complicated. Get rid of all these variables. You bring the club back yay far. You bring it through, and right about here, kind of like release your wrist to get a little bit more speed. Get that club head moving faster. And then we'll just work on straight. Like, if you're a little bit this way or a little bit that way, like, we'll get your club straight, club face straight. And man, that dude was jacking the ball. Like, we were on the range for like 30 minutes. I was like, man, I should be a pro golf instructor. Like, just quit trying to do like, oh, you got to hold it like this, and you got to turn your hands like this, and you got to shift your hips like this. It's just like, it's all just stupid shit to get like one thing to happen, and it's really not that complicated, especially if you have good hand-eye coordination, which a dude like that pretty much does, right? Like, I don't know how to teach hand-eye coordination besides like you should probably go play some ping pong or something for a long time before you get back on the golf course. But I feel like business is a lot of that. Like, stop creating more complexity and variables, eliminate some variables. Why create another process you need to manage?
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
No, I agree.
That might have been like 8 cents. That was more than 2 cents.
Well,
6, 7, 8 cents, but it was definitely less than 10. It was still single.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point about golf, I'll work backwards with a few comments. To your point about golf, I mean, at the end of the day, the actual goal is where the ball goes, right? Not even necessarily any of that stuff before that. And similarly in business and or life, like, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, what is going to get us there the fastest, simplest way? And when you talk about, the whole, do you pass that through or all of that stuff? That's something where, knowing your numbers at a very deep level. I have talked to a lot of people in my group, and many of them do not know any of their numbers. Like, I ask, hey, what's your close rate? What's your customer acquisition cost? And it is a range or an I don't know, right? And I think understanding your numbers at a deep level makes that super simple, like to where it's almost not even a question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something where I would say because business, I mean, to a certain extent, it is obviously relationships and people and things like that. Like, you have to have people to pay you, but also to build a business. But at the end of the day, it's numbers, right? So understanding those numbers at I like to say deep level, but just understanding them in general will put you leaps and bounds ahead to where again, that might not even be a question that you're asking because you know your numbers and it's like, oh, little tweak here and we're good to go, or whatever that may be. But yeah, no.
I'm all about those numbers. You know me.
I know. So I brought it up.
That's what I'm all about. Well, shit, Kaden, I got one more question for you here.
Gosh.
I would say, how does somebody get a hold of you? But I'm just going to say, go to serviceindustrypayments.com. Yeah. The link is on YouTube. The link is in the Facebook group. The link is on my Facebook page, wherever you're finding this. Click on serviceindustrypayments.com. Check it out. Any other place people should hit you up if they got questions?
I mean, Facebook,
right here, right where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Fine. Kaden Hoover. Let me hit you with this. This is like my common closing question. And I don't even think you're going to have an answer. I'm really curious to hear your answer because you're so damn young. I think you got, and like, you're already doing a whole bunch of shit. You're already like making moves, learning new things, building cool stuff.
Yeah.
But let's throw this out there. If money wasn't an object, let's say whatever you choose to do, you're going to have enough money to do to go on all the hunting trips you want. But you got to like do something. You got to be employed in some sort of form or start some sort of business. You drop everything right now. Money's no object. What would you go out and set out to do?
I do have an answer.
Oh shit. What are you going to do?
So, and this goes back to what I said about just learning. So it was probably 2019, realized this. And it was basically the idea of, well, first of all, I have always liked business. Like the first time that I was like an entrepreneur, I was like 12. I think I made like.
You're just out pushing a lawnmower down the street. Like, what's up, Mr. Jones?
No, I actually made paracord bracelets. You know what those are?
Dang, yeah.
I made those and sold them. And I made, I don't know, it's probably like $5,000 or $6,000. So
damn. I was gonna say a few hundo.
I was very wealthy as a 12-year-old.
Damn, dude. Damn.
But from that point on, like I liked business and basically fell in love with it. And in the 2019 area of time, I kind of figured out like the game of purchasing and selling companies. So that is what I would like to do long term, just because, I mean, if you're doing that and doing multiple at the same time, you get to see a lot of business and just be in business. And obviously, you know, doing that stuff, you would be able to build a team of really solid people around you that are high performers and set out to achieve stuff. So if in the future, that is what I plan to do. But I would answer it that way.
I dig it. One of the things we used to do when I was at Blue Skies is we would pursue businesses sometimes where we kind of were like, we're a super long shot buyer. Like we don't think we're going to end up buying this business, but man, if we like go through some due diligence, we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, I actually was thinking about buying a company after I sold mine and moved. So I looked at a couple different ones and went through that whole process. But the path is not there yet. So I had some other things come up, which we discussed earlier. So here we are. But
some other distracting business ventures come up that you can't talk about yet.
Yes, but soon.
Hell yeah. Well, once you have that going, let's get you back on and we'll talk more about what's the new thing that you got going on.
All right.
For now, though, serviceindustrypayments.com. Go check Kaden out. Hit him up if you need some merchant processing help. I'm okay. Hold on. Let me just take a sip of this beer. Now I'm better. Any closing thoughts? Any closing comments? Anything you want to leave the audience with, Kaden?
I would say that
you would say, or you will say, because I feel like you will say, because you're about to say it.
I will say.
All right.
Just that, like, I think no matter what, and this is a personal opinion, if you will, that life is just about progress. So no matter what you're doing, if you are improving in one way, shape, or form for the better of hopefully yourself and I would say like family and community as a whole, I think you are winning. Even though it's not a straight line, I think you're still winning. That would be my closing thought, because business is hard, obviously.
It's hard. Dude, that you hit on something I've talked about on this podcast before, but I'm gonna take on to that before we close out, which is in my version 2.0, my bookkeeping business here. I've done a way better job of enjoying the journey. And like, I know it's gonna be hard and there's ups and downs, and nobody likes like hitting the refresh button or the restart button. But man, like, we're so privileged and lucky to have the skill set that we have, to have the drive that we have. Like, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but don't just put your head down and bitch about it the whole time. Like, we're doing awesome shit. And so if you're out there running a business, enjoy the hell out of it. Like, life is too short. It's part of the journey. Like, go screw some stuff up, have some fun. Don't beat yourself up over it. Get up, keep trying, enjoy that ride. Not many people get to go on it. Like, not many. Sure. And most people really suck at it. And so if you're not totally sucking at it, you're probably doing great.
Yeah, progress.
Have some fun with it. Well, Kaden, I appreciate you hanging on there. All pushing the 2-hour mark. So thanks for dealing with my bullshit. Like you didn't already know that was going to happen. You've talked to me enough times to know what this was.
Known you for a few years, so
yeah, okay. you know what you're getting yourself into. Business nerds, go check out serviceindustrypayments.com. And as always, you know what to do. Work smarter and harder. Go earn yourself some pride. Thank you, Kaden. Good night, nerds. Peace.